jumping back and forth continuously.
Okay, I'll pull it up to start with, and we'll go from there.
Sure.
Okay, through you, Mayor Kane, we're now live on YouTube.
Thank you very much, Emily. We'll call the meeting to order then. 1:01 I have. I can see everyone on my screen, so I know we have a full council and our clerk is present. So we can proceed. Are there any additions to today's agenda? I see none. So I'll look for a motion that the agenda of May 18th, 2021 regular council meeting be approved. Thanks, Larry, and seconded by Scott. All in favor? Carried, thank you. I'll ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof. Seeing, hearing none, we'll note if something comes up during the course of the meeting, please notify the clerk. And that brings us to section 5, public questions on agenda items only. Does the clerking department know if we received any questions for today's meeting?
I have not received any requests, Bill.
Okay, I can barely hear you, Kate. I believe you said none.
Mayor Kane, I haven't received any
A little.
requests. Can you hear me now?
It's a little, yeah, you're not barely audible on my screen. Or on
Okay, I just had my earplugs on and maybe there's a problem. Mayor
That's
Kane, I've received no requests to ask questions.
Okay, thank you very much. That lets us move on. Then we have no presentations or delegations, so we're quickly up to section 7. We need a motion that council go into a public meeting under section 34 of the Planning Act for zoning bylaw amendment applications and section 357 of the Municipal Act regarding the refund of taxes at 103. Moved by Mark, seconded by Pat. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you.
Mayor Kane,
Yes,
I can go into the procedures for the public meeting under the Planning Act.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so council is sitting at this moment to hold a public meeting to hear public comments on zoning bylaw amendments. And they are zoning bylaw amendment 0521 Mitchell and 0721 O'Neill Staub. So Mayor Kane will announce the application and I'm providing the reports to council on both those items. The floor then will be open to the public. Please make yourself known to the clerk and the mayor with your name and your address. And we'll be asking for those persons in support of the application, those persons in opposition to the application, and those persons seeking clarification, and then back to the applicant. Then members of council may make comments or ask questions with respect to the application. And then the next section will be entertaining the corresponding bylaws. And then those persons who are requesting a notice of decision must do so directly and with the clerk, so they can email myself at kserreris@hamiltontownship.ca. Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
You're welcome.
So we'll move to 7.2 zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-05/21 Mitchell. In fulfillment of condition of provisional consent for new lot creation in application B-05/20 Brinkley and Taylor. This application is seeking to, number 1, rezone the severed portion, which is part 1 on registered plan 39R-14269 to rural residential, and 2, to rezone the retained portion, which is part 2 on the registered plan 39R-14269 to special marginal agriculture 42 to recognize the rear setback of the frame shed on the property. So I'll ask first if there's anyone here in support of this application. Hearing none, I will ask, is there anyone here opposed to this application? Again, hearing no one. Anyone seeking clarification? So we're ready to read a prepared motion. It is recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamlin enacts as follows. The council receives zoning bylaw amendment application report ZBA 05-/21 and that the members of the public be heard as requested and that the zoning bylaw amendment request be adopted as it appears to be in keeping with good planning principles. Have a mover, please. I can only see part of my screen, so. Oh, thank you. Moved by Pat, seconded.
Will second.
Thank you, Scott. No further discussion then? Kate?
Mayor Kane, did you want me just to do a brief review on the report prior to calling for the vote?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to do a brief review of the report prior to calling the vote?
You may as well. We have, even though we had nobody from the public in question, it might jog a question from member for council. So
I believe one of the applicants is present at the meeting. So I'll just do a brief review. So the application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. There's existing land uses, one single detached dwelling and farm outbuildings, and surrounding land uses are residential and agriculture. It met the requirements of the provincial policy statement, and it was also in conformity with the township's official plan, and that the proposed zoning bylaw amendment in relation to the consent to sever for the purpose of creating one new separately conveyable residential lot, as described in the severance application, appears to be consistent with the intent of the zoning bylaw, and the proposed use of the land appears to be compatible with surrounding area, and the existing buildings can be made compliant with a specialized bylaw provision. The Public Works had no objection. An entrance will be addressed as any other public works concerns. Building Department, no objection. The county, they're noting that the county and provincial policies support limited residential use in rural areas that can be serviced by individual on-site water and sewage systems, and any future development should be set back from the existing barn and the water course as required by MDS calculations. So the county has no objection to the proposed application. Conservation Authority have noted that its property is located partially within a regulated area. It's traversed by Coburg Creek, and that the property is located partially within the regulatory storm floodplain associated with Coburg Creek, and a permit is required from the Conservation Authority for any development activity in this particular area. The Conservation Authority's primary concern is the protection of life and property from the flood hazard, and staff have specific criteria and requirements for construction in the floodplain. The Conservation Authority has provided comments with respect to natural heritage on behalf of the township, and the property is in close proximity to significant woodland. The newly created lot is outside of the floodplain area noted, and on that basis, the Conservation Authority has no objection to this particular application for zoning bylaw amendment. So in conclusion, the proposed rezoning application meets the intent of the provincial policy statement, the OP, and the zoning bylaw. And there is this department recommends approval.
Sorry. Thank you, Kate. And I see we do have one of our applicants here. Would you like to add anything, Ms. Mitchell?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think the report covered it all. I was just here to answer any questions if there was any.
Okay, thank you very much. Does any member of council have a question? Okay, we've had a mover and a seconder. I believe it was Pat and Scott. So I'll call the question. All in favor? That's carried 5-0. Thank you, council. Thanks, Robin. So 7.3, zoning bylaw amendment application ZBA-07/21, O'Neill. In fulfillment of condition of provisional consent for lot addition to the Nature Conservancy of Canada. This application is seeking to amend the underlying zone provisions for the retained portion, which is part 2 on the registered plan 39R-14253 to special rural residential number to recognize the front setback of the house and the height of the detached accessory garage on the property. I'd like to run this one by us, Kate, to start.
Absolutely. Okay, so again, the application was circulated in accordance with the Planning Act. It's in fulfillment of a consent application that was previously approved by the Committee of Adjustment. It was reviewed with respect to the provincial policy statement, with respect to the township's official plan, and with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment. And these were all reviewed initially with the consent application that was before the Committee of Adjustment. Agency comments to this particular zoning application. Again, the building department had no objection. Public Works reviewed the application. They completed an on-site inspection and have no objections. The county's one window review that the lands are designated Oak Ridges Moraine and the county OP and are subject to policies of the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. The plan is intended to protect the ecological and hydrogeological features and functions of the moraine. The application is to rezone an existing parcel of land to recognize deficiencies in the front yard setback and the garage height of the existing development on the parcel. So this is specifically speaking to that parcel of land that is left because the vacant lands are merging in title with adjoining lands. Based on their continued review, that the lands are located, in proximity to aggregate resource operations and within the selected sand and gravel resource area of primary significance. However, future development of these aggregate operations and aggregate resources underlying the subject lands will not be adversely impacted by approval of this particular application. Therefore, the county has no objection. Conservation Authority, the subject property is located partially within the regulated area. It's traversed by multiple Rice Lake tributaries. Any alterations to water courses require permits from the Conservation Authority. The property is entirely within the Oak Ridges Moraine and subject to the Oak Ridges Moraine Conservation Plan. The Conservation Authority provides comment with respect to natural heritage on behalf of the township, and the property contains a preliminary significant woodland. The severed lands are owned by the Nature Conservancy of Canada for conservation purposes, and this bylaw reflects the existing conditions on the retained lands. In conclusion, again, the policy was reviewed the application was reviewed with respect to the provincial policy statement, the township's official plan, the township zoning bylaw, and I recommend that council approves.
Thank you, Kate. So I see that we have our applicant present. I would ask if there's anyone else here who's in support. Hearing none, is there anyone here opposed? Again, hearing none, anyone seeking clarification? Again, hearing none. Mark, would you like to add anything more to the information that we've already heard, or would you like to just answer questions if they come from members of council? You're still muted, Mark.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for hearing this, and thanks to the planning staff for your report. The only thing I would add, and then I would answer questions, is that this severance and now the rezoning to facilitate that is to allow for an ecological gift of Mr. O'Neill's land, the severed lands, to our Hazelbird Nature Reserve, which council, I believe, is aware of, and is one of our nature destination sites that has got a lot of attention and use during COVID. The additional land would be connected to Hazelbird and the Hazelbird Trail Network. So and we would actually be creating another space where people can visit and explore the Oak Ridges Moraine. So it's a great step, and I want to publicly thank Mr. O'Neill, who could make it to the call today, for his generosity. And yeah, so thanks for support so far, and I'm ready to answer questions if need be.
Thank you, Mark. So there we are, members of council. Anyone have anything? I don't see anything coming from council. We have a prepared motion. The council receives zoning bylaw amendment application report ZBA 07/21. And that members of the public be heard as requested, and that the zoning bylaw amendment request be adopted as it appears to be in keeping with good planning principles. Mover, please. Thank you, Mark. Seconded by Scott. Call the question. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Congratulations, Mark. Moving to 7.4, a refund of property taxes. This is T 2021-19 applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for refund of property taxes. The reason for this application is due to a gross or manifest error made by MPAC concerning the lot size of the property. The application is number W0-2020-05. The effective date January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2019. The property roll is there 1419 000 060 2021 0 and quadruple zeros. And the property is located on 8405 Donaldson Road. Would you like to give us any more information, Kate, before we go to the members of the public?
This particular application has been posted and with respect to a report that the treasurer will be providing later on in the agenda. So it's an opportunity if the applicant wanted to speak to the application.
Okay, thank you. So is there anyone here in support of the application? Hearing none. Those opposed? Again, I hear none. Anyone seeking clarification? Not again. Okay, we can move 7.5. We need a motion to rise from public meeting and reconvene to regular council session. Thanks, Pat. Seconded by Larry. All in favor? That's carried. We're now back in regular session. That would be at 1:19. Brings us to section 8, planning bylaws, 8.1, bylaw 2020-25, Mitchell. It is recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enact as follows: the bylaw 2021-25, the bylaw to amend bylaw number 2001-58 as amended, the township of Hamilton land use control bylaw to rezone part of lot 18 concession 3, part 1 on the plan 39R-14269 to rural residential, and to rezone part of lot 18 concession 3 on the registered plan 39R-14269 to special marginal agriculture, MA 42. Be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed on this 18th day of May. Mover, please. I see Larry's hand. Thank you. And seconder. I can always, oh, there we go. Sorry. Thanks, Pat. Back to full screen again. Anything from members of council? All in favor of the motion then? It's carried. Thank you. 5-0. 8.2 bylaw 2021-26, O'Neill and Staub from the Nature Conservancy. It's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton enacts as follows: the bylaw 2021-25, a bylaw to amend. Should that say 26?
Should be 26.
Okay. So that bylaw 2021-26, correction there, a bylaw to amend bylaw number 2001-58 as amended, Township of Hamilton land use control bylaw. to rezone part of Lot 4, Concession 7 on the registered plan 39R-14253 to special rural residential, be given first, second, third reading, and finally passed this 18th day of May, 2021. Moved by Mark, and seconded by Scott. Thank you. Anything from council? All in favor then? That's carried. So we have a number of different meetings and committees, reports to get onto the books. I think we'll ask, we'll stop with each one and just see if there's anything that you want to bring forward from business arising. So we'll start with the minutes of the committee, the whole meeting held April 13th, 2021. Let's get a motion that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held April 13th, 2021 be received. Excuse me. Mover, please. Thank you, Pat. Seconded by Larry. All in favor? That's carried. Any business arising from that meeting? See none, then I'll ask for a motion, please, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 20th, 2021 be received for information. Oh, sorry, Kate, we have a problem?
Yes, item 9.2 and 9.3, which deal with regular council and special council minutes, need to be adopted. The motion says receive, but just if you can call that they be adopted, please.
Okay, be adopted. Oh, I'm sorry. We're looking at a correction then. Thank you. So we're trying to adopt the meetings. We're adopting the minutes of the meeting of the regular council of 2021. That's the April 2021. That's the motion that before us now then.
Yes.
We did have Larry, thank you. And a seconder, please. Thanks, Scott. All in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising? 9.3 is a special council meeting of April 22nd. The motion would read that the minutes of the special council meeting held April 27th be adopted. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Mark. All in favor? And that's also carried. Any business arising from that meeting? 9.4. It's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton proclaim it's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows. The minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held May 11th, 2021 received. It's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton proclaim May 28th, 2021 as menstrual hygiene day in the township of Hamilton as requested by Period Promise Northumberland at our May 11th, 2021 committee of the whole meeting. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Pat. All in favor? And that's carried. Any business arising from that meeting? Okay, that brings us to section 11, committee reports. It's recommended that the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton acts as follows at the minutes of the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting held March 29th, 2021 be received for information. It is recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton by the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee, the council write a letter to the Northumberland County to continue and support the Environment Officer Program. I would like to separate that into two motions if we could. So I'd like to make a motion simply that we receive the minutes first. Yes, Pat, seconded by Scott. Thank you. All in favor? That's carried. Anything from that, Pat?
No, but I did want to comment on the second motion. So I don't know if you want a motion just to get it on the floor for conversation.
Do we need to get it on the floor first? I think we do. So it is.
So I'll make that motion.
You'll make that motion, okay, and seconded by Larry.
So
Discussion.
what I wanted to talk on, if I may, is that when we discussed this at the meeting that is listed here, at the following meeting, when the the minutes are further down. We reviewed that we can't actually, the committee cannot actually recommend council to do something not within council itself. The reason for the motion was about it's not a removal, the dropping back of that position has made it that the committee doesn't have the same resource for someone who actually knows what's already happening in terms of environmental change. So the concern is that having that part of our committee, we need to find a way to make sure that that's still happening. Since then, I think we have heard that we will have the support of the county, I think until the end of September. But because we're a fledgling committee, we don't have enough automatic resources. So I think if we were going to do something as the council, it would be to consider other ways to support the committee with somebody with the knowledge to get us moving. And then as council, we could consider whether or not we want to encourage the county working with us if they are doing the same thing. But we are not trying to say, or the motion is trying to say exactly what it says. But at our next meeting, we talked about, we realize we don't have the ability to say to council, make that motion. So that's an explanation enough, unless Mark wants to make it clearer or add something to it.
Yes, Mark, go ahead.
I'm only going to add that after further discussion, we realize that not all of the county uses that representative, so it may not be advantageous for the county to carry that position on, or it may not be voted in favor of carrying that position on because, as I mentioned, a lot of the other municipalities don't use that particular position. So it was also talked about that perhaps we could have maybe not the person that's in place now, but perhaps someone else that could represent the 3 or 4 municipalities that do have this particular committee going at the present, so that they do have some backup in the future, because it is going to be awful onerous on our own staff to carry forward if we do go forward without a representative. So that's where, and I think Pat's talked about it, and that's kind of where our committee is going right now, is without that particular person there, being a new committee, it's going to make it difficult. But I personally think now that it's been extended at least till September, we could carry on quite nicely, at least until perhaps a new position is taken on, or perhaps, if voted on favorably here, and perhaps if the other municipalities that are using a particular position would be in favor of joining in with us, it would make it advantageous.
I know the position originally was created, and a large part of the funding was a grant from the province. It was only to be a one-term position. It's outside the county budget right now. The county budget's been passed, and there's been no provisions made for extending it. So, it becomes a budgetary concern, obviously. So I know that, as Pat has said, I believe the county's at least agreed to look at it and try to come up with some idea, but there's no promise given there. So that being said, what would we like to do with the motion we have on the floor? Do we want to vote on it as it stands? Do we want to withdraw the motion? Yes, Pat? No, you're still muted, Pat.
Forward are not count. Oops. Okay,
So that-
are
I
not
guess-
council members. Just the members of the committee who asked for the motion to be brought forward aren't council members, and their only representation is us. I think that we leave it stand, but I don't think the committee or anyone else is going to be surprised if it is voted down.
Yeah,
So I think we leave the motion on the floor, but you take the vote.
Speaking personally, I can't support the motion. So
That's what I'm saying. I think that the motion should still go forward because of the way it was brought forward, but that nobody's going to be surprised if it's defeated. This is my thinking on it.
Okay.
Oh, Mark's got a different idea, maybe?
I just want to bring forward that, yeah, we may not be able to get through the county or going through the county way of doing things, but is it possible to perhaps let our CAO and staff here come up with, see if there's any alternatives to having a position, whether it be through the county or whether it be just through the 4 municipalities at a lower rate of cost? I mean, if there's only 4 municipalities involved and it isn't going to be anywhere near a full-time position, perhaps you could at least look and see whether there's an alternative there. And then we could, you know, decide from there whether it's affordable or needed or not.
Pat again?
I completely agree with that, but I think that's a separate motion.
Yeah,
So,
probably is, Pat, yeah.
Larry, you'd like to weigh in?
Well, can we defer making this decision until September when we can review it again? But I have a question. Why doesn't the county think this is an important aspect with regards to the climate change? If the committee needs this kind of expertise, I mean, surely, you know, funding for it, but can't they apply for another grant in addition to what they've already had? I mean, there should be something there. If they're serious about, both federal and provincial governments are serious about the environment, I would think they would want to make some attempt to get some kind of funding for it, either through a grant or otherwise. So I'm wondering if we shouldn't just defer the vote till September. Anyway, that's just my, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I think just to partially answer to the original part of your question, I think the person who's given this position did an exceptional job, and I'm not sure anyone foresaw the growth that was going to happen, the number of committees that were going to evolve from it, and all the things that happened. It's a good news story, really. But that being said, I'm not sure that lower tiers are in a position to instruct the county on what to do about budgeting for things like this. We could certainly, there must be some way that we can send them some encouragement that, you know, we're in favor of them going forward with it. But I mean, it's going to be as Mark said, it's a budgetary item. And if all 7 lower tiers aren't participating and getting the equal benefit from this position, then there's obviously going to be some opposition from lower tiers who aren't using the service, that they would still be paying for it. So it's going to be a little bit of a nasty discussion at some point. Yes,
I might be able to. I just realized I can comfortably withdraw the motion because it's not part of the mandate of the committee. Or like our motions are supposed to be directly to township. So I can withdraw the motion and then make a second motion asking that because of the future loss of that expertise, not the person, the expertise to our committee, could we ask staff to contact municipalities that could use that too, and see if we can come up with some kind of part-time way to get that covered for all the municipalities who are still in need. So that's not directly county at all. Like it could be county who's interested, but I'm thinking more Port Hope. So Port Hope, Cobourg, and one other, Mark?
Yeah, I think,
Crammy, but I might be wrong.
yeah, it could be Cranby or Elma Coleman, one or the other. Maybe it's Elma Coleman. Is it Cranby?
So if staff could do that, they can find out who might be interested in participating and see if they can come up with a plan so that we're not left high and dry in October.
So we're bogging down a little bit. I think Arthur's going to try and rescue us here.
Not at all. Sorry. Well, I am going to try and rescue you, but you're not bogging down. I hear the discussion. I hear the points. They're all very good. Outline of some of the issues related to this position and the resolution. So we're clarifying that. What I can confirm, though, is that the CAOs had a meeting yesterday. We have a regular meeting to keep one another informed and on sharing exchange of ideas. This issue was on the agenda. It related to the funding, the position, and the county not having provision in their budget for it presently. However, the 4 municipalities, Township of Hamilton, Town of Port Hope, Town of Cobourg, and Township of Crammy, all agreed to take the issue away and discuss it further to see what options might be available. So it lines up with what you're speaking about. The 4 municipalities in particular Fortunately, Township of Helena Coleman was not on the call, but we will be taking that away, coming back and seeing if there's a solution, we can come forward to help with the resourcing of that position and that resource to the municipalities.
Thank you.
So you don't even need a motion. You're already all over it.
It does not interfere with your interest and support to try and encourage that to occur. To you, Mayor King.
Can I just?
Well, that brings us back to you, Pat. You're the original mover. Do you want this?
I am withdrawing my original motion. I don't know who seconded, but they would have to agree. And I think Mark wanted to add something.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go back to the clerk. I'm sorry, who was the seconder?
It was seconded by Councillor Williamson.
Okay, thank you, Kate. So Pat's asking to withdraw her motion, Larry, based on the information that we heard, especially what we just heard from Arthur. Are you in agreement? Yes, I see you nodding. Okay, so we can make a note from then, please, to the clerk's office that the motion has been withdrawn by mutual consent of the mover and seconder. Thank you.
Okay.
11.2, the Accessibility Advisory Committee. We need a motion that the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting held on April 19th, 2021 be received for information.
Bill,
Yes,
before we go forward, is there a possibility that maybe yourself could talk to the CEO at the county and see whether there's an opportunity to extend that position with going through the grant program?
so it's something I didn't add, but I should have spoken up about when we were talking about that, Mark. I know that you know as obviously well, the county does have a position who spends most of her time seeking funding and different ways of bringing monies into the county. And Judy has already been tasked with trying to see if there's something, some way that she can apply for some further grant to extend that position that we were discussing. So I believe that's what you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
I believe that's already underway.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Okay. Yes, Scott.
If I might direct my question to staff on a point of clarification. We just had a motion moved and seconded and then withdrawn. Do we need a subsequent motion to defer? Because it was pulled from the original report.
I don't think we need to defer it. It was pulled out of the minutes. But now the CAO has advised us of discussions at the CAO level with the CAO of the county that we can now report back to the committee that further discussions at the CAO level will continue with respect to the requirement of that expertise.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are on 11.2. I've read the motion about receiving for information the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. We have a mover. Thank you, Larry. Seconded by Pat. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried. 11.3, we're back to Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting. This one held April 26th. It's recommended the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamlin acts as follows. The minutes of the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee meeting held on April 26, 2021 be received for information. And is recommended that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamlin by the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee that Council develop a policy for the inclusion of a climate risk and mitigation assessment in the implications section of Council reports. It is also recommended that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamlin by the Environment Climate Change Advisory Committee that the Human Resources Department review energy efficiency, composting and recycling best practices at the township during staff orientation, and that the CAO send a yearly memo to staff regarding climate change, and that a composting program for municipal facilities be investigated, And finally, it is recommended that the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton by the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee that visible and additional signage be installed as reminders for staff about non-idling, turning off light switches, recycling, etc., and that this signage be paid from the Environment and Climate Change Advisory Committee 2021 budget. Thank you, Pat. Moved and seconded by Larry. Discussion. Yes, Pat.
This started with us having about 15 items to prioritize that were things that we might be able to move forward fairly quickly at the, like within the township itself, that wouldn't be huge costs. So these are just recommendations for staff to look at and whatever they think is feasible. The no idling, the non-idling, I asked a little bit about what that was and how that would work. And the suggestion we got was even getting the small stickers that you can put in the township vehicles, just reminding them not to let them stand idle for a long time without turning them off, if there's not a good reason to have them idling. So it's mostly the signage is mostly reminders and like turn off the lights, those small things. And we should be able to cover that within our budget.
Anything else from other members? I think Scott, I saw a hand, didn't I? Yes.
A question in relationship to the reports and that particular recommendation. Has anyone at the staff level thought through how that process might occur and what difficulties might arise? It sounds great on the front end, but I'm just not sure how it's going to be when it gets to practice. And I don't necessarily feel comfortable in supporting it until I had a bit of more information on it.
Yeah, I was right there too, Scott. I was going to say, has staff had an opportunity to seriously consider the possibilities of these things being done, or if they can't be done. I mean, that's Pat's already told us that within reason, they're just more suggestions.
I was going to say at our meeting we discussed that, and the intent is whatever we can reasonably do at this point. So because they could go way far, you could go and you're only going to tender contracts with people that do X, Y, Z, and they're not looking for that yet. I mean, we may get there somewhere. It's more just, have you taken into consideration how this might affect environmentally, or is there something we could do to improve it?
So let's go to staff then. Arthur, thank you.
Through you, McCain, if council could refer this issue, or we'll take the information from the recommendation from the Environment and Energy Committee, we'll have to review the impact of this. We already do a number of issues to save energy, and that can be in when we look for energy efficiency in our buildings. But some of the other recommendations with respect, for example, to composting, those will be new things for us to do. They've been looked at in the past. They've adopted in some areas, or then they were stopped for various reasons. So we separate our garbage from recyclables to garbage material. So I guess I'd like, along some of the comments that we've heard, to look at the various recommendations, see what could be implemented, see if there's some simple quick hits, but also come back to council with a recommendation on how we will be able to deal with recommendations from the committee.
So in fact, you're looking for a deferral.
Or have the issue referred to staff for a report back.
Yes, Mark?
I was just going to say, rather than defer it, I was going to say, if we just add the words within reason in the motion, then that would at least get things underway, and staff would be able to look at things realistically. I mean, the last thing I want to see is staff go forward and, yeah, we have to go this way because it's more environmentally preferred than going another way, which may be half the price. So I mean, within the report that came to council, I would expect both. I mean, this is what it could cost, but hey, X but why would be this price? Because, you know, it's not as environmentally as wise to use maybe as the first option. So I think we just added those words. I mean, that kind of looks after that. I do know the letter or the wording that would come from the CAO would be just simply recommendations throughout, you know, make sure you compost, make sure you shut off the lights, those kinds of things. That's what we were looking for that yearly letter. I mean, it wasn't something that was going to be really complicated or a complete update of what was read, you know, from listings of the paper and so forth. It was just things within our own operation that you would remind staff to look at on a yearly basis. So that's kind of where that was coming from. And there is an example of that from the CAO from the county that does similar. But yeah, if you want to write, you know, it's within council's rim, but I mean, I just like to leave it within reason. I really don't want this to get out of hand. You know, I mean, yes, we have to be environmentally cautious, but we also have to be fiscal cautious too. So
Back to Pat.
Would it work if we amended the motion to say that with the recommendations forwarded, that staff prepare a report to the feasibility of them? And then we're not deciding anything at this moment. We can see what can and can't be done.
Yeah, that's where I'm coming from, Pat. I'm just worried that the way the wording is now, that we're handcuffing staff. If we pass this, they're basically being told, you have to do this.
Well, that's why I was trying to figure out the best wording. I think
Yeah.
feasibility of the issues would
I'm
work.
having a hard time passing it as it stands, simply because, as I just said, and I'm repeating myself, I know, but I don't want to handcuff staff. We need to let them have an opportunity to do the things that are doable. I'm not saying there's going to be a huge pushback, but we have to make sure things are doable before we instruct them to do them.
The committee that we're working with is very, very respectful of, we're not going to be able to go bang and do this, this, and this. But they were also concerned that they wanted to start getting recommendations forward, so the county wasn't thinking we were sitting on our hands. And these were recommendations where we're thinking that if at least some of them can be put in place, they can be of little or no cost, and we'll get the ball rolling so that all of us start thinking about the environment more at the top of our list. So I would like to add to my motion, or adjust it to say that the recommendations be considered by staff and the feasibility report come forward.
Yeah, I think that gives them more leeway. Are you all right with that, Scott?
To a point, in this particular minute or two that's just passed, I've had the thought of a lot of these reasonable thoughts, and that are always subjective in nature. And I'm always concerned about that, what the intent is today. And as we move forward 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and staff change and committee members change, what the true intent is. And I'm always concerned about that. And I am right now here too. The other component is in the preparation of the staff report. I mean, there's going to be examples, I suppose, of what might work and might not work. And I don't know how we categorize those and move forward in the future. So I will support the intent of the motion, but I also look forward to the staff report and how it's going to deal with so many variables that are unknown to us at this point in time.
Okay, I don't want to put Kate on the spot, but Kate, is there any simple wording change that we can make that would, give staff leeway, and this wouldn't be perceived as a direct order, if you will, to do all these things?
Without being negative back to the committee, because they are doing their job, but you want to recommend that these items be considered.
Yes, that's
subject to feasibility, and then just leave them as a list. I think that would give them that we are taking it seriously. We are considering them. Some of them might be a bit more difficult to put into place. So that's where the feasibility and reasonability have to come in.
Thanks, Kate. So I'm gonna go back to Pat, who's the original mover. Any of that language suit you?
That meets exactly the objective we were going for.
So could we make that alteration in the motion?
Yes, we can.
I'm asking Pat, can we make that
Oh,
alteration?
absolutely.
Okay, and the seconder? Was it Larry again? Okay,
Yeah.
are you all right with that, Larry? That alteration, okay. So does that satisfy your concern, Scott?
I believe it's going to, but considering the volume of discussion here, could we actually have the motion in a consolidated form read to us so we know exactly what's in front of us? I got about 7 versions right now that I'm not sure which one to choose from.
Okay.
I had to take a drink after I read the motion the first time, Scott.
Okay, let me give a try here, Scott. Okay, so the very first preamble is that the minutes be received for information and that the following recommendations be considered by staff subject to reasonability and feasibility. Do you still want the report to come back to council? That's a Pat. So, and a feasibility report be submitted back to council. And then we would just bullet point that council develop the policy for inclusion, that the HR department review the energy efficiency composting and the et cetera, and that the visible and additional signage. So those are the 3 recommendations.
Yes, Pat.
In your bullet points, Kate, also the one about CAO sent a yearly memo.
A yearly
It's in the
memo?
bottom of the second recommendation.
Oh, yeah, I just wasn't reading everything. I was just reading.
Oh,
the
you're doing it
word.
as the whole thing? Okay, I'm good then.
I figured it was in front of everybody, so.
I believe that question was directed at me. Yeah, I can make that work. I think the intent is there to make it work.
All right, we've had a thorough discussion, I would say. If everyone's now happy with the wording, with the intent and the staff's opportunity to look at this, and it is going to come back to us. So all that being said, are we prepared to vote on the motion? I'll call the question. All in favor? And that is carried 5-0. Thank you, council. Moving to section 12, Public Works and Infrastructure. This is tender PW 2021-04. It's recommended that the council of the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report PW and I 2021-04, tender PW 2021-04 for information. And the council authorized the mayor treasurer to award tender number PW 2021-04, the Bethel Grove Road Culvert Extension, at a value of $90,000 plus HST to 2608558 Ontario Limited, A2Z Civil, and that the council directs and authorizes staff to fund the additional expenditure of $14,006.81 from the Bridge and Culvert Reserve, and that the mayor and treasurer be authorized to undertake all things necessary to execute the contract for the work. Moved by Scott, seconded by Mark. Is there discussion? This is one of those unfortunate times when the tender came back higher than our estimates. That doesn't happen a lot, but it did this time. Anyone have questions of Lucas? Yes, Scott?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment, and that is that this has been a difficult project since day one, which was a long time ago. And I acknowledge that it needs more money, but that's because of circumstances, untimely, unfortunate, unfavorable circumstances, and that we need to move forward. So I'm certainly willing to support the motion.
Okay, and I saw Larry's hand.
Just want to confirm that the balance in the reserve will be 227,954.19. Is that correct?
Boy, Nugget just popped up there just like that, Larry.
Yeah.
He's ready.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the balance in the reserve as of December 31st, 2020 will be a surplus of $183,000.
Okay.
Question answered.
And that has a plus in front of it.
Thank you, Nazareth.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So I'll call the vote on the motion then. All in favor? That's also carried 5-0. Thank you. We're on to recreation and facilities. 13.1. We're talking about fishing in the parks. It's recommended that the Council of the Corporation to the Township of Hamilton acts as follows. The council receives report PNR 2021-05, and the council authorizes the manager of parks and facilities to keep the waterfront parks located in Bewdley, Harwood, and Gores Landing closed for fishing until the end of the provincial stay-at-home order. Or that council authorizes the manager of parks and facilities to keep the waterfront parks located in Bewdley, Harwood, and Gores Landing closed for fishing until the entire province of Ontario is in the green color of the province's safe reopened framework. Do we need to get a motion on the floor to start discussion? Yes, Larry? You want to move the first motion or the second motion?
Well, I think we've got to discuss which motion we're going to have. Is that option one or option
We
two?
do. That's why I just asked the question of staff. Like, do we have to get a motion on the floor before we can start this discussion, or can we open it without the motion?
You generally need a motion on the floor to discuss the matter, and the matter is before you in two parts, but it is before you.
Okay, so I put that motion forward,
Okay,
Mr. Mayor.
yes. So we have that motion from Larry and seconded by Pat. So now
I'm clear as to which one he's making the motion. The close to
Oh,
the
to-
stay-at-home order.
No,
the
just
green?
I'm making a motion to receive it so that we can discuss it. So that we're not making a motion for either option.
Okay, a second.
Okay, right.
Okay, so just for clarification then, for all the members of council then, so the motion is to receive this for information so that we can open some dialogue. So we're all in favor of that? And that's carried. Now I'm going to throw a wet fish in this one. I've already given our staff and Trevor in particular a heads up to let them know that this was coming, so that I didn't attack him from out of left field. But I want to add to this conversation whether or not we should keep our boat launches open as well, so we can have this all in one large discussion: fishing and boat launching, and all the options that might be out there and all the reasons that we have. This might be something of a lengthy discussion, but would anyone like to start with an opinion? Yes, Larry.
Well, I think it's going to get confusing because we do the stay-at-home order on June 20th. What does the province declare that to be a green color? Because it seems like the province is getting pressured to open up the outdoors. And I think that's going to be a big factor. So we've got an issue that, if we don't open up the boat launching, I think we're going to get a lot of, feedback on that. But, I'm confused between the stay-at-home order and the whole province going to green. How that would impact us from a provincial standpoint. Can Trevor sort of talk to that? And what are the other municipalities looking at the same thing?
Sure, I can speak to that through you, Mayor Kane. The reason we come up with that, it's similar to, and you'll see in the next report, with what we've done with ball tournaments. And one of the issues we found last summer when opening up, under that framework, that color framework that the province provides us with. When we opened, our region was green. And when we opened the ball tournaments, we had an influx of users booking ball tournaments coming from red and hot zones coming into our community. So we made the decision at that point to defer any ball tournaments until the entire province was in a green, which put the numbers in a fairly good state in regards to the COVID-19 numbers. So what I was trying to do with the fishing component of this is kind of identify somewhere in that color reopen framework that would permit the opening of people, because I think we're all well aware that the people that are coming to fish in our parks, one, there is some locals, but many are coming from out of town and coming from the red zones or hot zones, if you will. So that's why I kind of threw that option in there, as if, to permit it. If everybody in the province was in that green zone, that would mean, everybody's in a fairly safe zone that would be coming to our community.
So if I may respond, Mr. Mayor, I think the confusion is going to be is that, the locals, if we shut it down, then they don't have an opportunity to fish. And a lot of them do want to. So I don't know how we're going to deal with that. The closing of the parks to tournaments is easy because you just don't let they have to book the tournament, but here it's kind of open. And I believe that the province is going to be looking at opening the outdoors for people to start having recreation. So how do we, unless we make it firm that we go with the green color only, then we're shutting it right down, right?
Through the mayor, just in response to that, yeah. And all we were looking for a tool that we could use to identify at what point do we open it back up. And that color framework seemed to be what the province is using and that we're abiding by in our region. But it was a matter of the region hopping is the issue of people coming from other regions and trying to address that.
And if I can jump in there, Larry, a lot of what we've been thinking about and trying to provide was for our locals. They're paying taxes here, but what's happened is, the GTA horde, for lack of a better word, it basically takes over on the weekends. Our locals are not going out there. They don't want to be out there with them. They're afraid to be out there with them. There's so many of them. They're not fishing on the weekends in our parks, and they're not taking their boats to the boat launches at our parks or at our boat launches during the weekends. They're just staying completely away from there. And we are right now, we're in a stay-at-home order. What are dozens and dozens and dozens of vehicles doing coming down here from Toronto when we're under a stay-at-home order? So I think until at least the stay-at-home order is over, we need to do something for sure. Anyone else? So I think I saw. Sorry, Mark. I saw Scott's hand earlier. Then I'll get to you. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm going to make it very short and sweet in my thoughts. Close the beaches, close the docks, close the boat launches until the province is green. We have people that want to go fishing. Great. All kinds of people want to do all kinds of things, but staying safe and not transmitting is the priority at this point in time.
Not hard to figure that out. Mark.
I'm more for the stay-at-home order only, and I'm not for closing the boat launches. I fish on a regular basis, and I can tell you that when you use a boat launch, you just simply go out in a boat and you're not in contact with anyone. You simply go out. I was out last night, for instance. As I say, I go out probably 3 times a week, and I use the boat launches on a regular basis. And I'm not in contact with anybody when I'm there. Yeah, I don't agree with fishing on the docks because there's a number of people that fish side by side there. But when I go out in the boat, there's just me and my young lad, and that's it. And we go fishing, and that's all we do. We don't contact anyone. We don't see anyone. we just simply launch the boat and go. And that's what 99% of people do. They don't, I don't ever see anybody that's there with a boat that converses with anyone else unless they're quite a distance apart. I mean, they're generally launching their boat as fast as they can so they can get out fishing. And when they're coming back, they want to get home. And that's all they're doing. But that's my end of it anyway. I look at the stay-at-home order for the fishing on the docks as we have now, and that's kind of where I am. And I can tell you that almost every other municipality out there right now has their boat launches open. And I use the one last night. I used the one in Cavan, South Monaghan, because I go at Campbelltown, and I know the ones down east they're all still open. So the boat launches, they've remained open, but a lot of the parks have been closed. But that's where I am on it.
I wonder if there's a compromise on keeping them open during the week for our locals and shutting them down on the weekend.
Yeah, that's something that could be considered, because I mean, that's when most of the people, well, almost 100% of the people from Toronto do come down here is on the weekends. They're not coming down during the week.
Right.
So that's probably a good compromise.
So anybody else? Yes, Pat?
A couple of things. With the original one that we put out, did we close the launches?
No.
No. Okay, so our launches are currently open, but our waterfront parks are closed, correct?
Yep.
And our fishing is closed in the parks.
Yeah. I think I fall between everybody who's been talking, because my thinking is leave the boat launches open. But I would like to see the color coding thing to go right through, but be the same as it is for the ball diamonds, that's green or yellow. I think that's a little bit more open, but the yellow was still very strict in terms of what you could and could not do. So to me, it's leave the boat launches open, but everything else stays closed till the province is in green or yellow, would be my preference.
Larry again? You muted yourself, Larry.
One of the critical things is the Gore's Landing boat launch. We had discussed many times about just closing it altogether because it's not a proper boat launch. Have we still, like from Trevor's point of view, are we still considering that? Even if we're opening up all the launches, should we be closing that one? Because it's not safe to launch boats there, thereby reducing the amount of the cars in Gore's Landing. I think we originally said we would close the boat launch to motorboats, but kayaks and canoes could launch there. Is that correct, Trevor?
So through you, Mr. Kane, we did have that discussion earlier in the year in regards to closing the Gore's Landing access for boats and that was primarily for the issue of parking in the community, because when you get the boats and trailers there and then the people using the parks at the same time, it did become quite a headache for staff, parking enforcement issue. So that was one of the suggestions, closing that, and that would clean up our parking issue in the parks.
Okay, so is that if let's say we pass the motion that we're going to keep the boat launches open, should we consider keeping or closing Gore's Landing for motorboats? Any comment? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You'll hear the screaming even louder at Bewdley if you close the one in Gore's Landing and you leave the one in Bewdley open. The calls I'm getting from the two villages are different in their nature. The people in Gore's Landing, it's a parking issue there. It's because they're, trucks and trailers are parked all on the side of the road. The complaints for Bewdley are they're being inundated with people from the GTA and that they don't believe those people have any business being there. And what I've noticed, unfortunately, is the type of calls that I'm getting, people are angrier, they're louder, and there are even racial overtones to some of the things I'm being told. And that bothers me, that there seems to be a progression in the anxiety level, if I can use that word, of some of our ratepayers. They're just really, really tired of having so many tourists come into the villages in the weekend. But, I'd still like to see us close the boat launches on the weekend. Maybe that would discourage so many tourists from coming down, and it would still give our ratepayers the opportunity to use the lake during the week.
That's a good suggestion. I like that.
And
Mark?
to go along with Larry's point, that may be something you may want to permanently do in Gore's Landing, because that would eliminate a lot of that parking issue in Gore's Landing if that was permanently done there. That way your locals could still use that boat launch, because it is nice to launch a boat there. I've done that, and it's one of the better, believe it or not, it's one of the better launches going. I mean, you can go out quite a ways, but the water's not very deep there, and it's really nice to put a boat in the water, especially a smaller boat. So if you closed it permanently on the weekends from here forever, I mean, that would allow, as I mentioned, the locals to still use it when they want to use it during the week. And it would keep a lot of that Toronto traffic away from it. But that's maybe, I don't know if that's a discussion for today or not. Maybe that's something you have to take back to your Parks and Rec committee or something to evaluate, but that's kind of where I am on it.
Okay, so once again, not to put Trevor on the spot, but I mean, you've heard the discussion, Trevor. Is there any kind of compromise situation here that we think we can make work?
I would just like, the one comment I would like to make, and I think more of the compromise you're talking of the weekends, is I'd have to come up with a plan. It'd be a challenge on how we block off the launch. At what time do we block it off, and when is it blocked off until? Because you run into the issue if it's a chain or a barricade or whatever it is, if somebody's out on the lake in their boat and then we chain it or barricade and they can't get out of the lake, then that becomes an issue. So that's my concern with the compromise portion of it. But I do agree. I think most of the complaints that we are getting are weekend, are on the weekends. So.
I think it's very simple, Trevor. You just say at Friday night or Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, you put a barricade across, and that's it. And then those that are out there you'll have to allow them to get off. But I mean, or put a sign there or something saying that there's no more boat launching. But that's about all you can do. I mean, if somebody's out in the lake, which there will be, I mean, there'll be fishermen out at 5 in the morning, and you're not going to prevent that unless you want to get up awful early. So you're going to have to allow them in, but you just don't allow anybody else out, and that kind of looks after that. Most of your fishermen are going to be there. They're going to be there by 8 o'clock in the morning anyway. The good ones. I mean, those afterwards are there for recreational use. So, I mean, most guys are done fishing by 10, for the most part.
Well, we've kicked around multiple ideas. Input from staff. Arthur?
Through you, Mayor Kane, it is an issue that we raised briefly in the waterfront strategy about the closing of Gore's Landing. Our interim approach was to paint it, which you'll have noticed if you're up there, as well as consider whether a further full blockage would be appropriate or not. And Trevor has been working with us on reviewing that. We've been working with K9 on the enforcement. So it was when we were going to come back. Right now, we're extending it temporarily. The closure and the issues around a chain, the timing, who opens it, who closes it, does create a sort of a workload management and a timing issue that Trevor's pointed out as well. If someone's out on the lake and needs to come in and the chain's there, how do you open it for that person? So if we could, I guess we'd have to look at making that an implementation item. Right now it's closed. We're proposing, we're giving you options, but I guess we would maintain it to be closed, and we'll have to come back with a plan to actually consider the weekday weekend difference in whether it can be opened or not.
Okay, Pat.
I thought we said at the beginning that right now it was open.
It is open.
Yeah, the parks are closed to fishing, but the boat launches are open, yes.
Okay. So the issue you've been hearing right now, Bill, is that on the weekends, even with the stay-at-home order, order, especially Bewdley, but both launches are in use.
Are in use.
And the community is complaining about it being out of towners.
One ratepayer went to the trouble of going to the parking areas around Bewdley and taking pictures of the identification where the vehicles were sold, you know, like, I won't say any word out loud for any of our locals because I don't want to give one unfair advertising, but you know that the companies put their names on the vehicles that they sell. And one of our ratepayers went to the trouble of going out, and I mean, there were dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And they were all from, you know, Markham, Brampton. I mean, all the ones he showed me were from that area, and there were a lot. So, yeah, it's a weekend problem. Maybe we can break this down and tackle these two things separately. Could we come to a decision on the fishing first, and then we'll make a motion regarding that, and then we can make a recommendation or motion regarding the boat launches. So what I'm hearing from Trevor is that closing the fishing has worked very well. It's really alleviated a lot of our problems. And I'm fully in support of continuing that. I believe the question simply is,
When?
how long do we continue it for? So I'd entertain, I know Scott's made his position abundantly clear.
I'll make that a motion to see how we go with it too, if you wish, Bill.
So you want to close the fishing until the entire province of Ontario is in the green color of the province's safe reopening framework.
Yeah, I will modify that slightly if I understand the colors correctly and bring in Councillor Pat's suggestion that one more color zone would be okay. I think it's yellow, Pat.
Yeah.
I'll add that to my motion if that is okay.
It's okay with me. You're making the motion. Are you seconding that, Pat?
I am.
Okay. Kate, do you need clarification on that motion?
Okay, so, okay, so that's just a singular motion, closing for fishing until the province is in either a green or a yellow zone.
I
That's on the
believe that
dock.
was the motion.
Yeah, only on our dock, so.
So we've had a mover and a seconder. Is there any other discussion before we vote? All right. Oh, sorry, Larry.
Just going through you, Mr. Mayor, can we go back to Trevor for a minute and just clarify the color coding? Yellow and green. Trevor, can you tell us what the status is on that? The yellow?
As far as recreation,
Yeah.
in terms of recreation, it's more when you get into the green and yellow and even orange for some extent isn't a huge difference until you get to red. And then a lot of it is based on organized recreation for team games and sports and facilities, things like that. There's nothing specific to fishing, but it's the gatherings and the amount of people that you're permitted. I don't have the exact figures in front of me. I know dealing with it in the arenas until we get to the red is when it has a huge impact. But as far as fishing and the colors, there's nothing specific to it. It just kind of gives us staff a guideline as to when we can and cannot open it.
Okay.
In regards to what the numbers are like.
Okay, so what you're saying is that yellow and green are safe zones for having fishing.
Yeah, it goes green, yellow, orange, red, then gray, and lockdown.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Any further discussion?
Just for clarity then, I know it's been mentioned yellow. Are we going yellow or are we going green? Where are we? Because I'm not 100% sure what I'm voting on.
I
Can you
have
break it-
recorded either a green or yellow zone.
Well, yellow will come first, right? So I mean, it'll be yellow then green. So should we not just say yellow then? What's the difference?
All areas won't come at the same time though, Mark. There'll be a difference. Some areas will be green and some will still be red.
But this is all of Ontario we're going by, right?
That's what Trevor's saying, until we get the whole province down to at least yellow or green.
And that's what our motion is. So I mean, our motion just needs to be yellow then. It doesn't need to be green. or else I'm missing something.
I guess, but some of our health zones will already be green before some get to yellow. So there's going to be at some point a combination of green and yellow.
No, I understand that, but in our motion, we've said that we'll allow fishing on our docks when it hits green or yellow. I know, I don't exactly know what that means. It's either gotta be one or the other. I mean, it can't be both.
If I can, through the mayor. So what happened last year with the ball tournaments, a similar thing is, our health unit was green, but yet Windsor Essex was still in a red state, and then they went to yellow.
Yeah.
So once they went to yellow, everybody else was green, and that permitted the opening. So
That's for
I guess
ball
you could say
tournament.
yellow at minimum. I'm not sure how that's worded, but
That's what I mean. For
Yeah.
fishing, it's different because I mean, we don't know where they're coming from. So I mean, they could be coming from a red zone or wherever. So that would mean the province would have to be yellow then, right? Is that what we're saying, minimum?
yeah, same thing.
That's what I thought.
So do you want the motion reworded? Is it a combination of either green and yellow, or is it just yellow for the entire province at a minimum?
That's where I am. I mean, it has to be at
That's,
least yellow is what we're saying. or else-
Deputy Mayor Jib has the motion on the floor.
Yeah,
I would, to simplify this, I would go yellow or better.
well, at least yellow, right?
At least yellow.
Yes.
I don't think we need to get bogged down here. It's got to be yellow or better.
I'm fine with that amendment.
Okay, then I will call the vote. If there's no more discussion, all in favor? And that's carried. We'd entertain a motion regarding the boat launches. I think we have three choices. They remain open, they are closed, or they're open during the week and closed on weekends. Take any of those three motions.
I'll go again, Bill, just in case it might work. I'll make a motion that the boat launches be closed on the weekends from Friday night at 5 o'clock until Monday morning at 8 o'clock. Until which time the province goes yellow or green.
Yes, Larry? Second motion? Okay. Yes, Kate?
Well, this coming weekend's a prime example of a long weekend. So then that would push that to a Tuesday.
Farming community doesn't acknowledge holidays.
Something added that for Tuesday on a long weekend.
Yes,
Very good point, Kate. Pat?
I was just thinking, I have no problem with the motion. I just don't know how you're gonna look after it logistically. People coming out assuming it's open because it's been open and them not seeing any kind of notice because they're not gonna hop on our website. Not in terms of us making any changes to the motion, but in terms of people monitoring it might be more difficult. So I don't know who's in charge of figuring that out, but.
Trevor's danced this dance before, so I think we'll go to him. He's got some ways of getting the word out there.
Yeah, so obviously we'll use our social media methods to get the word out there, but obviously we'll have some kind of signage located at them areas. So when they do put their boat in, they'll know that the launch will be blocked off at Friday at 5 and reopened Monday morning at 8. I think is the best thing we can do. So as long as they know when they're putting their boat in that it could be blocked off when they get out.
I was actually more concerned of you having difficulty with enforcement with people coming from Toronto on Saturday, thinking they could put their boat in on Saturday. And if the numbers that Bill has been talking about on a regular weekend are that high, on the long weekend, they're going to be higher. And I don't know if you want to add extra enforcement or something in that view. That was my only concern.
If, I guess the enforcement isn't a huge issue because it's going to be blocked off, so they're not going to be able to launch. And I think the other thing is the enforcement's out there. We've went into that, we have that contract. The bylaw, the person is out there enforcing the bylaw, so it's, yeah, it shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, I'm fine then.
Trevor, can I just ask, are the marinas in Beauty, are they open to boat launching now or not?
So my understanding is the one in Bewdley is, that I'm aware of. I haven't followed up with them directly. There's another one in Gore's Landing, I understand is not
No,
permitted,
theirs is still-
launching. So with marinas, it's kind of all over the map. Some are, some aren't. I don't have all the details on all of them.
I just wanted to make sure there's a way of getting a boat off, just in case somebody got out there and didn't see your signage or something.
And that was a question when I consulted with the health unit today in regards to kind of helping look for some direction in that. One of the comments that come up last year when they were closing boat launches was when they were being blocked off, emergency services being able to get boats in if needed. I know through the township's fire department boat is in the water, so that's not an issue. But if OPP or somebody needed access, they would have to go to one of the private places to access the water, their boat.
So no other sorry, Scott.
I just wanted to turn to Trevor. Trevor, I arbitrarily chose times. Is there a better hour of either, opening or closing for your convenience, for your workload, for your staff? I mean, I don't need you running around at 5 o'clock closing up docks if you've already quit at 4:30.
No, I don't know that it matters. We'll have to readjust our schedules to make sure somebody's out doing that, how they're going to do it. It's more just, letting people know and getting that information out to them on when it's going to be closed.
I'd be more than willing to adjust if it would help you and your staff.
I think we need to consider when it's going to become effective too. Is it too soon for this weekend? This is the holiday. This is the holiday weekend, right? Coming up.
Yeah, I think obviously by the time we communicate it, it's getting tight. But if you don't do it this weekend, you're going to be faced with your phone ringing all weekend again with the complaints.
It's going to be crazy out there.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be a nice weekend as well.
Yeah.
So if it's council's decision to close it, I think the other thing is how long we're going to do it for. Is it just until the end of the stay-at-home order, or which basically that puts it for only 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Actually, I had in the motion that it be until the province is yellow or green again.
Any more discussion from members of council? So everyone understands the motion. I'll call the question then. All in favor? And the vote is carried. I saw a late hand 5-0. Thank you.
Mayor Kane, can you tell me who seconded that, please?
Who seconded the
did.
motion? Pat did.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, council. 13.2, it's recommended the council of the corporation of the township of Hamilton receives report PNR 2021-06 for information. Do you want to address this, Trevor, before we vote?
Sure. So through your mayor, I spoke to it a little bit briefly earlier on and how we did things last year. Just want to advise council that our intent is to do the same thing again this year for the sports tournaments, meaning ball tournaments that happen at the Baltimore Ballpark. We do have a significant amount of tournaments booked, and I can say that they're not all local organizers that are booking them. So there is that concern of people coming from other regions that we ran into last year. So we just want to go. We're going to proceed with the same as we did last year, and when the entire province is in that green of the reopen framework, then we will open up to ball tournaments. With that being said, our local ball events are leagues that play on a regular basis that are mostly local users. Once we fit that framework that they can continue to play weeknights and some weekends, where we will permit that as per the reopened framework by the province.
Pat?
I just want to confirm that it's yellow or green, if I'm reading this correctly.
That report was green.
At the bottom, it says both. Until the province is in a yellow or green zone. Not participate in any tournaments until the
Oh, yes.
province is in a
Okay,
yellow.
sorry. Yes, correct. Correct.
Oh, so that's what you actually want
Yeah.
it to be? Okay,
Correct.
that's all. No.
Any other discussion? So I've read the motion. We have a mover. The council receives PNR 2021-06 for information. Moved by Mark, seconded by Larry. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 14.1. This is T 2021-17. That's our first quarter financial report. Nazar's with us today. Let you have the floor, Nazar, and we'll bring up the motion at the end.
Perfect. Through you, Mr. Mayor, staff is recommending that council receive this report for information. And I do want to let you know that we are going to be presenting financial information to the council on a quarterly basis. If I can take everyone to page 2, our expenditure at the end of Q1 is at around 22.3%, and that is related to timing and also because staff rationing expenditure because of all these uncertainties that we're facing right now. In terms of revenue, it is at 18.3%, and that is again because of timing and also because recreational revenue suffered a major loss because of the lockdown. In terms of water expenditure at the end of Q1 is at 21.4%. Again, it's related to timing and constraint in expenditures. Revenue is slightly below, it's 16.5%, and that's simply because of timing. Capital charge, for example, is sent out to the residents in Q2 and onward, not in Q1. If there is any question on Q1 financial statement, would be happy to answer.
Open it up to members of council. I don't see any. Thank you very much, Nazar. We have a prepared motion. The council receives report 2021-17, the first quarter financial report for the period ending March 31st, 2021 for information. Thanks, Larry. Have a seconder, please. Thanks, Pat. All in favor? That's carried. 14.2. This is T 2021-18, the 2020 Safe Restart Fund allocation. Again, Nazar, any information you want to share with us, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In this case, staff is recommending that council receive this report for information and allow staff to transfer approximately $300,000 from the general reserve to fund the 2020 COVID operating cost and pressure. I do want to remind council that in on October 20th of last year, I did bring a report to the council when I've indicated that we are receiving approximately $300,000 from the province for this 2020 Safe Restart Fund allocation. And at that time, I requested council to allow me to transfer the fund to the general reserve. And I mentioned that I will be bringing forward another report when all the numbers for 2020 is in, and I'll ask council to allow me to transfer back that amount to fund the cost. And that's what I'm doing right now. For 2020, COVID expenditure and revenue loss is approximately $354,000. We're requesting that to be funded from the 2020 Safe Restart Fund allocation fund. That's approximately $300,000, and the remaining to be funded from budget efficiencies. Any question on this?
Any questions, Pat?
If we were unusually lucky and didn't use the 150,000 completely for this year, can we put it back to cover some of the loss on last year?
If we are very lucky and we don't need that amount, we'll keep it in our reserve so that in the future, if we have these impact, we will be able to use it.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if there's no other questions, then we do have another prepared motion. The council receives report 2021-18, the 2020 Safe Restart Fund allocation for information, and that the sum of $300,200 of the 2020 Safe Restart Fund allocation be transferred from the general reserve for 2020 to fund the 2020 COVID-19 operating costs and pressures. Thanks, Scott. Seconded by Larry. All in favor? That's carried. 14.3, applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for the refund of property taxes. This is T 2020-19. We're looking for a mover and a seconder. That council receives report 2021-19 and applications per section 357 of the Municipal Act for a refund of property taxes. And the council approves the write-off of property taxes for the total amount of $295.84 for the 2019 and 2020 tax years, of which $131.75 is the municipality's portion. Thanks, Larry. Seconded by Pat. All in favor? That's also carried. Thank you. Moving to 14.4. This is PNG 05-2021, the consent merger agreement. We have a motion prepared. The council received report PN 05-2021, consent and merger agreement, which is a severance agreement for information. That the mayor and clerk be directed to sign the consent merger agreement and return to the applicant, John O'Neill, for registration on title and fulfillment of a condition of consent. Moved by Scott, seconded by Larry. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Building department stats for Q1. We have some staff here want to address this. There's Tim coming up. Hi, Tim, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor Kane and members of council. Today, yes, bringing forward a statistic report for Q1 for the building department. And as seen in the report, it's been a great start to the year, both in value of projects, revenue, and number of permits issued. So we have a good start and have already exceeded our Q1 expenditures with the revenue, which we don't typically see in the beginning of the year. So positive all around on the building department statistics. If anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
So thank you, Tim. Yeah, we've all had the report, received it midweek last week. So we've had more time to look at it. Any questions from council members? Yes, Larry?
Through you, Mr. Kane. Tim, where's the majority of the, I don't know, it's probably a difficult question to ask, but where's the majority of the construction going on? Or is it just spread throughout the whole township?
Through Mayor Kane, yeah, spread through the township. It's a lot of those lots that haven't been built on over the previous years, I guess, due to sale prices, people are selling their homes and starting to build on those vacant lots. So we've seen a number of them, as well as some additional development in Baltimore through the Stallwood subdivision.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other members of council? Yes, Mark?
Just a quick question, Tim. What kind of increase are we seeing in house per square foot when it comes to a new build this year compared to last year?
Very interesting question, Mark. pretty impossible to answer at this point. Material prices have gone absolutely through the roof. I would say over the last few years, you could get a very standard home for around 250 plus, 275 a square foot. Now, shoot, I tell people to budget for 400 and don't be that surprised if it goes over. So it's material prices have gone up tremendously, but also the contractors' prices as well. It seems to have increased across the board. So that's what I'm hearing. Again, without doing those estimates myself, it's hard to pinpoint all the increases, but lumber is a big ticket item, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Anything else, members of council? All right, then we have a motion that council receives a report BLDG 2021-02, 2021 Building Department stats for Q1 for information. Thanks, Pat, and Larry seconded it. All in favor? Carried. 14.6, the official plan amendment number 11 application. To speak to this, Kate?
We have with us today Mike Keene and Kelsey Jones from Photon Consulting.
Hi, Kelsey, welcome.
Good afternoon. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have much to add beyond what's the brief summary that's in the report, but just to highlight the one change that has occurred to the proposed official plan amendment is the inclusion of section 11.16.1 of the township's official plan. And this policy provides direction related to municipal servicing and water systems, including reference to Baltimore. So through review by county staff, they brought to our attention that this section should also be included within the amendment because the wording is similar to that found in section 332. So to ensure that the policy direction of the township's official plan is consistent, we are proposing that section 11.16.1 also be amended. But just for everyone's benefit, the inclusion of this section does not change the intent of the proposal as was presented to yourselves in April. So including this won't have any impact on the overall changes to the OPA.
Thank you. Any members of council have questions? See none, then the motion reads that council receives report CD 2021-08, the official plan amendment number 11, application for information, and the council adopt official plan amendment number 11 by bylaw 2021-30 to amend policies related to the Baltimore settlement area servicing policies and direct staff to forward the amendment to the county of Northumberland for approval. Larry moved. Scott seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
Section 15, emergency services. As a recommend that we're looking at the bylaw 2021-01 refreshment vehicle license request. Tim, do you have this as well?
Yep, I'd like to speak to this. Thanks, Mayor Kane and members of council. Early May, the bylaw department received a refreshment vehicle license request from Kevin Sindel to place his chip truck on 9313 County Road 28. There's an abundance of items that need to be submitted with the application, including things like health unit approval, propane approval, fire department approval, county road and setback approval, zoning approval, and many others. The bylaw department has gone through the application and completed their review and are in support of the refreshment vehicle request as it has minimal negative impact to the surrounding area. Again, here to answer any questions you may have. I believe I sent all members of council a picture of the chip truck itself just to provide a visual aid. And like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Tim. That's your chance, council. Yes, Larry?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Tim, I noticed it's where the old garage used to be, the gas station that used to be there. Now, there's a lot of blockage on that entranceway. I'm just concerned about the fact that if it's an 80-kilometer-an-hour roadway on 28, like exit and entrance onto that property, is that going to flow right? In the past, being the garage, it had two entrances, north and south of the property. But is he going to be relying on one single entrance on?
Councillor Williamson, I haven't actually contacted the county with respect to the items that they have approved for that entry location. I would imagine they would open both. The reason they were blocked in the past is just because there was some illegal fill being placed on the property, and that was their way to control that. So I'd be happy to contact the County of Northumberland just to ensure that that's a safe passage in and out on those two entrances that they've permitted.
Okay, so they are going to allow both entrances then?
They are existing. Yeah, they are existing approved entrances. It's just they've been blocked, right? So
okay,
the county would be in control over those entries and whether or not they're blocked for the safe passage of traffic.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anything else for Tim? Then I'll be looking for someone to move and second this motion. The council receives report bylaw 2021-01, the refreshment vehicle license request, and it acts as follows. The council approves the refreshment vehicle request from Kevin Sendell, Personal Touch Catering and Events, Inc., for the proposal at 9313 County Road 28, and the council directs the municipal clerk to issue the new refreshment vehicle license and collect the license fee. Thanks, Scott. Seconded by Larry. All in favor? That's carried. Section 16, communications and announcements. I guess we'll get these on the floor for discussion. Looking for someone to move the correspondence items 16.1 from Grey Highlands regarding 3-digit crisis hotline, and item 16.2 from the city of Brantford regarding the request to withdraw the prohibition of golf be received. Mover, please. Thank you, Larry. Seconded by Pat. Thank you. So we'll open them separately for discussion. The first one was the Grey Highlands support for 3-digit crisis hotline. I think I had that one put up there. Did anyone else request that other than me? Okay, I'll speak very briefly to it then. Safe Communities and other groups like that across the province are doing everything they can and to help with crisis intervention, particularly depression and suicidal tendencies and so on. It just makes, to me, just makes so much common sense to have an identifiable, simple 3-digit number that people who are in distress can call, rather than trying to remember or look up a 10-digit number, which they might not bother to do. So to me, this just makes all the sense in the world that we would have a recognizable number like 988 for them to call. So I don't know how everybody else wants to weigh in on that. But yes, Larry?
Yeah, if we just pass a resolution to support it, should we not be writing our own letter in support of the 3-digit? Or is it, it just seems we're always, supporting somebody else, because I feel very, very strongly about the 3-digit number.
Yeah, this is also coming before county council, and I'm going to strongly recommend, that they support it as well. But Kate can speak to this better than I can, but I believe once a municipality has put forward a resolution like this,
I see.
Each additional one that supports it, we don't have to write our own resolution. I believe they piggyback. Is that correct, Kate?
We will contact Grey Highlands and advise them that we considered their resolution and we have supported the 3-digit crisis hotline. So we generally send it to the originator. I don't have that in front of me, whether there were other CCs on that, like to the province or.
I think, Larry, you'll see a lot of support from municipalities. I think there'll be a long list, hopefully, on this. Yes, Mark?
We could add our MPP to that list and have them CC'd on that motion, so they're aware that we are supportive of it.
Would you like that, Larry?
That's a great idea.
So
Thank you,
made
Mark.
Who made the original motion?
It was just read in. Okay, so I'd make a motion that we,
You made the original motion, Larry? Yes? Okay.
yes,
The Pat
so that we add that.
And were you the second, Pat? Are you in agreements to adding Mark's amendment?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Anything further? Okay, then, we'll, do we have to vote on them separately? I guess we should. Yes,
So, Mayor Kane, you had a motion on the floor
okay,
to receive the, okay, second. So basically it was to receive both
Correct.
of them or deal with both of them under that one original motion.
right. So we should have a second, we should have a motion to actually support it.
So if that's what you want to do with Councillor Williamson and Councillor McCourt
Yeah.
on this particular one, or?
Yeah, okay, so if the rest of the council follows, Kate's trying to clarify everything here. What we actually put forward as a motion was simply to receive these so we could discuss them. So if we do want to support this, we need a second motion then with the amendment that Mark suggested put forward. So any mover, any seconder for that. Thanks, Larry.
Do we need to vote on the first motion?
All in favor? That's carried. And the second piece of information, no big surprise, this came out of me. But my own personal interest aside, we have 3 golf courses in Hamilton Township. Now, one of those is under new management. I can't imagine how they're trying to get a business going, buying a new business, and then being basically shut down. I've been supportive of the provincial government in most of their decisions, particularly because they say that they're basing them on science. There is absolutely no science for this decision. I have no idea where they're coming from. In actual fact, when the golf courses were open last year, there were a grand total of 0 cases of community spread traced back to any golf course in the province of Ontario. The sport lends itself obviously to social distancing. You're several hundred yards apart unless you want to hit with a golf ball, and there's only 4 of you in a group. So I played golf at about 3 courses last year, and the amount of health protocols they had in place was astounding. Like you weren't allowed to congregate in parking lots, the clubhouses and locker rooms were closed, and you weren't allowed in the teeing area prior to 20 minutes before your tee off time. 2 people in a pro shop at a time, masks everywhere. I don't know how they could possibly have managed it any better. And I'm completely offside with the government on this one, as well as some other of their outside sports that they're prohibiting. I think they're just adding to our stress level. So I would strongly hope that I can get some support from council to support the city of Brantford. Thanks, Larry, for seconding, and Pat again. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Thank you, council.
Mayor Kane,
Yes.
just a point of order again on our previous bit of action there, and I look to our clerk. I'm questioning that we had a mover and a seconder for a motion to discuss, and then we had an immediate second motion with action and a vote. Did we in fact need a vote on that first motion to be in correct order?
The first motion that was put on the floor was from Councillor Williams and Councillor McCourt that the correspondence items 16.1 and 16.2 be received, but we didn't call the vote on that. We
I'm
went
sorry.
right into the introduction and discussion on the individual resolutions.
So we need to go back and have one more vote on on taking and receiving for information on the very first motion. Just so we have everything, all our I's dotted and our T's crossed, I believe is what Scott's trying to get at. So I'm sorry, council, that's my mistake. I own up. So we back up and vote on simply receiving that for discussion purposes. That's carried, thank you. And the other votes, the other motions were voted on correctly. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Scott. Brings us up to section 17 bylaws. We have bylaw 2021-27, a consent agreement for the O'Neill Nature Conservancy. We need a mover and a seconder that bylaw 2021-27 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and the clerk to sign and execute a consent merger agreement between the corporation of the Township of Hamilton and John O'Neill for property described as part lot 4 concession 7 to fulfill one condition of a severance file B11/20 be given first, second, and third reading and finally passed this 18th day of May 2021. Thanks, Pat, and seconded by Mark. All in favor? It's carried. 17.2, the award for tender PW 2021-04. It's recommended that the Council of the Corporation of Hamilton acts as follows. The bylaw 2021-28 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and treasurer to sign and execute a construction contract agreement between the Corporation of the Township of Hamilton and 26-2608558 Ontario Limited, A2Z Civil for the Bethel Grove Culvert Extension Project as outlined in tender number PW 2021-04, be given first, second, and third reading, and finally passed the 18th day of May 2021. Thanks, Pat, again. Larry, all in favor? It's also carried. 17.3, bylaw to establish and appoint members of the Ad Hoc Water User Committee. We're looking for a mover and a seconder that maybe before we move and second this, Kate, do you want to add anything? I know you gave us extensive information in our pre-read, but any comment that you want to make before we proceed?
What I've done is put forward, I believe there's 6 names, 5 from the Baltimore water users and 1 from Camborne. We felt it's hard to get volunteers, and when you've got 6 people that are interested in assisting the municipality, then we give them that equal chance on a bylaw to be appointed.
Thank you, Kate, and I agree with you, and I don't believe that 6 is a totally cumbersome number, so, you know, I think I think that's a good call. We've also noted that we've appointed Councillor Williamson and Deputy Mayor Jibb to be the 2 council members, and I did take into consideration, Mark, your idea of adding it to the other committee, but I just thought it was important enough that it should stand alone. And I thought that there would always be somebody waiting, like, you know, if the 2 meetings ran together, we never knew how long one was going to be. So no matter who went first, we weren't sure, you know, what the cutoff time was going to be. And I just think it's important enough that we don't want to keep members of the public sitting around waiting on us if we're late with our first meeting. So I just felt we should have a separate meeting. I did understand where you're coming from, though. So the motion is that bylaw 2021-29 being a bylaw to appoint members to Hamilton Township Ad Hoc Water Users Advisory Committee be given first, second, and third reading, and finally passed this 18th day of May 2021. Thanks, Pat and Larry again. All in favor? That's carried. Excuse me. 17.4. Bylaw 2021-30, number 11, the OPA number 11, which is the Baltimore servicing. A mover that bylaw 2021-30 being a bylaw passed pursuant to section 17 and 21 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended, to adopt amendment number 11 to the official plan of the Township of Hamilton for Baltimore servicing, and to direct the clerk to apply for OPA number 11 approval from Northumberland County, and to give notice under section 17, section 23 of the Planning Act, to give a first, second, and third reading, and finally pass this 18th day of May, 2021. Thanks, Scott. Secretary Larry, all in favor? Thank you, that's carried. No notice of motions. Media questions on agenda items. I haven't noticed from our participant list that we have any media present. Don't believe we do.
No.
Which brings us to section 20, our closed session.
Mayor Kane, might I suggest a 2-minute break?
Yes, for sure. Before we bring the motion to go to close, this is the time for it. So I have 3:02. How do we need 5 minutes more? 5 minutes is enough. Okay, can we reconvene at 3:07 and we'll make our motion to go into closed. So we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Thank you. Do we need a motion for that, Kate?
No, we're okay with that. And Emily can put this on pause.